Texas. Bernat, you're the head coach of the Lakewood Yacht Club Opti racing team. I want to say thanks for coming on and chatting with me for a little while and talking Optis and your experience in the game. Bernat, how is Texas?
Texas is pretty good right now, considering the situation, obviously. We're fortunate here at Lakewood. We've been able to start practicing since beginning of May. We put already 2 or 3 weeks, with all the social distancing restrictions. And kids been doing pretty well, trying to, keep the distance because they were really eager to hit the water. So, as I said, we were all looking forward to go back to the water, and it's been, a great couple of weeks.
I'm glad to hear that you're returning to the water. I'm sure your kids are very, very happy right now.
Uh-huh.
I think that this chat's going to be interesting because I don't know if everybody knows, but you actually were a pretty renowned coach back in Spain, and you've worked in the kind of international scene a little bit more than most.
Mm-hmm.
So Bernat, let's kind of dial it back a little bit. How did you start in sailing? How did you get into this sport?
Well, it's really interesting story because I wasn't like any other kids. I started with yacht clubs, maybe summer programs. I actually started a beach club, and my first boat was a hobby cat, and I kind of transitioned to Optis throughout the summer, and I did a lot of windsurfing and surfing and all these kind of things. They're really cool when you're a kid, but I really loved the sport so much that I actually quit soccer. That everybody wants to be like Messi in Spain. And I quit other sports like athletics and swimming, and all the way here. I love my beginnings, and I love the fact that I learned so much in different boats, and I had so much fun, not only with optics.
You kind of came up through all-in-one approach.
Absolutely. It's I think it's actually pretty interesting because when you only focus on opti, some kids actually find it boring. They lose interest, and eventually you lose them, right? So the entry that I had when I was really young, it was fantastic because it created a love for sailing in different boats and taught me different skills as well. Because everybody knows, windsurfing is not the same as optis, and hobby cat is a multi-hull. So I just loved every single boat I was able to sail during the summer.
But at some point, you kind of got into racing. Did you have a coach when that happened?
I was very, very lucky that, even in the beach club, there was a really fantastic coach that taught me so much and got me all the way to a racing level. I started to become experienced really quickly. And unfortunately, there's a moment that the structure of that beach club, doesn't really support you anymore. So I transitioned to a yacht club where, my parents picked that yacht club because the coach was, known to be really good, but at the same time, really tough. They used to call him a Kaiser, that is like a lieutenant,
Wow.
And this guy, was so rough and tough on you, but I learned so much that I still carry some of his teachings.
That's interesting because, I think a lot of times kids run into these tough coaches, that are not the smoothest people on the planet, but, they end up learning so much from them, and in a strange way, it makes them more competitive sometimes. So, for you, what brought you into wanting to compete more in sailing? What brought you into the racing world?
Absolutely, the competition. The fact that we were traveling every weekend, and not as the way that we travel in the U.S. when sometimes we just jump in an airplane. But back in my times as an opti, we would all jump in the car trailer, even like optis on top of the car, and we would drive 2-3 hours, go to the local yacht club in that area, and just sail all together, and just the ambience, the fact that you would see all your friends there and compete against them, and obviously the results, right? You start getting better, you start getting awards, and you keep on more and more and more, and it's like that competitive hunger, it just brought me all the way to I guess where I am right now. Right? It's just I'm never satisfied. I always want more and more and more and more. That's exactly what sailing provided.
So you would say that you're naturally competitive.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, but I hate losing every single time. Games, sailing, whatever it is. I mean, I had to learn how to be a good loser, right? Uh, and that's something that I really teach the kids about. Learning those experiences. They just get you, to become a better sailor and actually a better person. But yeah, definitely. I just wanted more. That spirit that I had, it carried all the way. It still carries. Coaches were competitive by nature. We're all great friends, but eventually, we want our kids to place well in the regattas, to prove that we can do it, right?
Let's hold on to that thought because I want to delve more into that idea. But continuing with getting to know Bernat, so to speak. I understand you started to sail lasers and compete in them at one point.
Yeah, I started really early. I mean, I quickly outgrew the Optis. Like by the time I was 13, I was probably weighing 120 pounds. And actually, I finished Optis, but I did some cross training. Started sailing laser 4.7, and started selling laser radios when I was 14. And eventually, it became the class that provided me with the best results. The class is everybody knows it's one design. It's really competitive. Truly, the winner is it's the best sailor that day. Everybody's got the same equipment. Pretty much everybody's got the same fitness at a certain level. And I just loved the boat for how fair it was with your sailing. You wouldn't take the right decision, so you didn't have your day. You wouldn't be in the top. And equipment wouldn't save you. Coaching wouldn't save you. It was all about you. And the results were actually quite good. I mean, I'm not trying to show off, but I got a couple of national championships, and I was part of national team going to Europeans and Worlds, and that provided me with so much experience and knowledge that I used it when I started my coaching career.
Now, you mentioned before that you found that the boat was really fair to the sailor. Now, did you find that there was a difference between the 4.7 and the radial in that regard?
It was a little different, and I believe it's the fact that you always, obviously, transition to a bigger boat, you got to become a stronger sailor. That was the only difference. Obviously, if people tried the lasers before, they know that with a 4.7, it's a little harder to roll tack and radial. It just becomes, you got to adapt to the boat, right? The boat is not going to adapt to you. You have the basics, but when you transition to a different rig, you always got to adapt. And that adaptation, it gets longer, it takes a longer time as you transition to a higher level rigs, like radial and then eventually full rig.
Right, right. I think I also want to go back to that point as well because there are a lot of kids nowadays that are discovering the 4.7 class or let's say the 4.7 rig in the laser class after the Opti. So speaking of after the Opti, you sailed Optis, competed, sailing lasers, competed, but what brought you into the coaching game?
I guess, we all have a dream of making it to the Olympics. And obviously that was my dream. That was my goal, right? For different reasons, I couldn't achieve that dream. And when I kind of like ended my Olympic dream, I decided that I just missed sailing so much that I wanted to continue to be tied to it some way, somehow. So I decided to transition to full-time coaching because since I was 16, I actually coached during the summers. And when I was about 19, 20, I started, a weekend job, part-time job, helping with Learn to Sail and Green Fleet. And there's a moment that's like, I want to make it a full-time job. And I found it so rewarding and so awesome in many different ways that I started really working hard, not only as a coach, but, developing myself, continuous education, learning from others, right? I wanted to make it to the top. When I was a sailor, that was my dream, and at the time I didn't know what was the top, right?
Well, I think making it to the top is an understatement because, you started coaching and pretty quickly found, some success. Now in the U.S., you just recently coached a Puerto Rican team in the Worlds in Antigua. I think oftentimes, even if you're a coach, even if you're a sailor, that transition from boat to boat, from venue to venue, from club to club, can be hard. When you made the move to the U.S., was that difficult?
It's always a learning curve, and I can tell you that because I coach in pretty much every continent excepting Africa. Every country's got its own way of developing sailing, its own way of understanding if this is right or wrong. Right, the culture is so different. Right, not only parents, other stakeholders like managers, presidents of federations, people that support sailing. The transition wasn't necessarily difficult, but I had to learn, from scratch, right? I remember my former boss was Mark Balashik, one of the most accomplished coaches in Optis in the U.S. And
shout out to Merrick.
Yeah, shout out to Merrick. And then he just told me everything that I needed to, do and work on in order to try to be successful here, right? He was a wealth of knowledge that I'm still using every time that I see him, even, calling him if I have a doubt or I need some more insights on coaching, right? It's all about learning from each other.
Well, I definitely agree with that. I've found that working in the Opti class, I think there's a really great community amongst the coaches, and for the most part, people are pretty supportive and willing to share, their experience.
Mm-hmm.
I think specifically the coaches that work within the U.S. SOTA sphere, are very helpful and very informative. Once you get to know them,
Yeah.
But let me ask you, is there ever a point that you miss Spain, coaching in Spain or working in Spain?
Obviously, right? I mean, I was born in Spain, and everything that I had in my basics and coaching, I learned it from other coaches in Spain, right? It's my home country. I miss everything: family, friends, the food. Absolutely. If I had the chance, the food is fantastic. If I had the chance to work in the Spain with the same conditions that I had in the US, I would definitely consider going back, especially because Spain is such a strong country in sailing. I mean, last year, the World Championships, they finished first in the Nations Cup. They were the best nation in the World Championships. And it's all thanks to the amazing coaches they have there, too. They have some amazing Opti coaching in several areas. And the sailors are so competitive and strong that I just wanted to see that happening for myself in a different place. I was trying to prove that I could actually do it in a different place other than Spain.
But you're bringing some of that heat here to the U.S. because Lakewood kids seem to be showing up in all these regattas and top spots. What's going on?
Well, I appreciate it. It's kind words. I think it's just hard work, and it's passion. If you do something, your work is something that you really enjoy, and you're looking forward to go to work every day, results are going to show up, And kids are young, but they are smart, If they have a coach that is passionate, supportive, and it's going to be tough, I mean, our job is to teach them not only as a sailor, but as a person, That's what I've been doing, just trying my hardest to teach those kids skills that they can carry on as a sailor, as a person for the rest of their lives, hopefully, And Lakewood has been a program that's been so supportive that it's another part of the success, right? We have a board of directors and an entire community that consider that Opti sailing is essential for the future of the yacht club, and that's fantastic.
That's interesting that you touch on a community because, we've been speaking to some coaches in the game and they brought up the same point, that community is essential to the success of any program and any sailor. So for you, what kind of people do you want around you to form your community?
It's the kind of people that they love sailing as well, right? I don't need families that necessarily been involved in sailing in the past, but families that support the sport and that they love it, and at the end, the kids, if they feel the support of their parents, with a good group of coaches, they develop to become maybe not top sailors, but they become experienced sailors that, they can use these skills in other boats, right? Opti is just the beginning. When you finish Opti, you're just starting your career in sailing, right? So I believe our job is really important to shape the sailors that in the future, they're going to become maybe Olympians, maybe they're going to become top college sailors. Maybe they're going to become coaches, right? I had a few sailors that are like, I want to become a coach when I grow up, and that's really rewarding. It's probably the most rewarding thing a sailor can tell to you, because actually, it means that your teachings are some way getting deep into them, and it's the feeling. It's amazing. It's fantastic, right? And you feel like you've done your job. You can always do it better, but that feeling is what makes you go back to the yacht club every weekend and keep pushing them.
Speaking of, what drives you to get out there, out on the water? What do you look at for inspiration?
Oof, as a laser sailor, I always thought that Robert Scheid, it's probably the best sailor in the history. A guy that is 42 years old and is still gonna go to the Olympics. It's someone to look up to. But at the same time, the inspiration is just I want to do something that matters for the kids, and I want to provide them with the tools that I had access to when I was young, right? And at the end, it's just I see them as a picture of myself in the past, and I want them to become as successful as they can be with my help, right? And that's what drives me, that those little moments when you're in the water coaching and you repeated the same instruction for 300 times, and that sailor 301st time gets it, and it's all worth. When you see that little detail on the roll tag eventually works out, or when he goes to the next regatta and he starts doing, really good, his face, his feeling, it's the best, just that that you try hard to help this kid and eventually you succeeded. And that's what drives me.
I think that's really well said, Bernat. I mean, I think sometimes some people have this conception of, coaching kids in sailing, that you're just some person on the boat that yells at them, and that's pretty much it. And that's not true. It's like, we live for those moments where we see that one thing, that one change, that one click where something just makes sense to them, and you just feel like, wow, I'm getting through,
Yeah.
and not just that the sailor realizes it as well, and when you see their face when they're like, wow, I'm really getting this, it's really, really motivating.
Yeah, absolutely. Sailing is really complex. Just it is not easy to develop complete top sailors, right? And you never know if you're gonna make it, right? But these little moments is what makes you keep pushing forward.
Agreed. Now, everybody has their own style, right? Every coach has their own style. Everybody has their own way of doing it, right? What is your philosophy, behind your curriculum for developing Opti sailors?
I believe everything starts with technique. It might sound like it's a cliche, but it's true. If you're not a fast sailor, you can be the smartest in the world, that you're not gonna match the speed from the top sailors in the front, right? So it's all about developing that specific technique that it's gotta be shaped to each sailor, because every single sailor has got a different technique, as every coach has got a different style, and it's about finding that moment that you connect with him or her, and it's like, okay, now I know what you need. I know the way that you should sail, or find a way to develop your technique to make it to your goal, right? And those moments, it's where I really push forward really, really strongly. Like, I need to develop that kid in this way, and I work really hard to that. When the kid becomes really fast, tactics and strategy and other parts like mental training, it comes together with the strong competition. Obviously, the larger the fleet is, the more that you learn, and it's something that at Lakewood we're a little limited because we're a little isolated in the Gulf Coast. But essentially, I think we're doing the right thing by, teaching those kids to go fast, sending them to regattas, managing them, or leading them through those events, and eventually coming back, with a bunch of feedback, and just keep working on that. Right. That's my thing. That's my philosophy.
And that's a good philosophy because I think as well, everybody is in such a rush to be at the top that oftentimes they neglect the things that make the process lead them to the top. Maybe paying attention more, having the time to pay attention to the things that you need as a sailor to develop into the athlete that you want to be. What would you say is the number one thing that, as someone who lived through that, what would you say would be your number one advice to that person?
It's commitment, absolutely. Sometimes I forget that we work with very young athletes, but yet, they have big goals, goals that are going to be difficult to achieve, right? So I ask for them for commitment, being engaging, responsible, right? I mean, it's 4 days of practice. You can make the 4 of them. You should be here, the 4 of them, right? And if one day it's 2 sailors, push yourself hard to beat the other. And one day it's 20, it's a completely different approach, right? But if you want to become successful and become, one of the top sailors in this country in Opti sailing, you gotta commit 100% to the sport, right? And there are a bunch of mental skills that are needed, and every kid develops them in a different way. And sometimes they develop different skills, but it's all about committing to the sport 100%.
I definitely agree. With anything, I think maybe this delves into what you were saying before about that we're in the Opti class, we're teaching the skills that they're gonna, and the knowledge base that they're gonna carry forward, not just in sailing technique, but also as an athlete. That level of commitment only ramps up from here.
Yeah,
And the Opti
totally.
class is where you have it easy. Once you get into the world of maybe pre-Olympic or the Olympic path, it's it's astoundingly difficult, and it requires a level of commitment that few people are willing to put in.
I think you touch a very sensitive subject, where I believe that some of the Opti's coaching is really undervalued on the sailing community when it comes to top level, right? I mean, it's undervalued in a way that we're not different from top youth coaches in 420s or lasers, or private coaches that work with really strong individual sailors, right? Developing a top Opti sailor takes time, takes patience, takes passion, and a lot of work, right? And I think this is actually this should show how much work and I would say talent coaches in the Opti world we have, right? Because we're preparing the sailors with the essential skills they're gonna need to transition to any other boat, and the skills that we taught are correct, they're gonna be successful in any boat, right? I mean, Opti coaches are needed everywhere, right? Because those sailors are gonna go to college, and those coaches in college, they want them prepared, or the coaches in the Olympic development program, they want those kids prepared too, right? So I believe we do a pretty good job at developing successful sailors in the U.S.
But I think it also has to be acknowledged that success may mean different things to kids in the Opti class. So for you, is it more about that search, that process, to try and get there, or is it just about being first?
No, it's a process. I mean, as I said, I absolutely dislike losing. It's second. I'm not happy with the second either, right? But there's only one winner in sailing, right? And there's a second, a third, and there's a 40th, right? At the end, you gotta try to find your path towards what's your goal in every single event and every single weekend of practice, right? It's a sport that is so brutal in this aspect because, as you said, there's only one winner, right? And we give them awards by age groups, but it's not the same, right? So at the end, I agree with you. It's the path, right? You got to remember how much you work towards achieving the final goal, whatever it is in your life. Some kids, they want to make it to the world championship. Others, they only want to make it to national team. Others, they just want to, qualify for team trials. And coaches, we got to help them, each of them, in the same way to achieve those goals, right? And I've seen it so many times where kids that maybe they don't develop to be super top sellers in optics, they transition to a different class, and all of a sudden, they explode. They quickly raise to the top rankings and sometimes become, super good sailors at a Kilbo level, or, All-Americans in college, or just reaching Olympics, right? And they didn't necessarily have a successful career in optics.
Well, that's true. I mean, not everybody starts in opties, and not everybody, does well in opties. But I think that the Opti class, aside the fact that this is Opti TV and, we're talking about Optis,
Yeah.
I think that the Opti class is at the point within the wider world of sailing that it's really almost impossible to ignore that nowadays, the sailors coming through the pipelines, around the world are coming from Optis. I think that sailing at large should acknowledge that and try to incorporate the Opti class a little more. So, you recently went to Worlds in Antigua last year and coached a Puerto Rican team. Now that you've done that, what are your next goals as a coach? Do you see any differences with how the U.S. does things versus other countries on the international scale?
Sure. I mean, towards the first question, I just want to go to more Worlds. I want to go to more IODA events. I just want to go to every single one of them as many times as I can. It's just this hunger. That those championships are so cool, so competitive. That the feeling. What you feel on the air, like there's so much tension. People work so hard during the year to get there that I was surprised. It really touched me, the fact that that championship it opened my eyes in so many ways. And actually, I just wrote an article that's going to come out soon about that. I just want to go more, and hopefully, one day, 1 year, if it happens, I can coach, the U.S. team, right? Unfortunately, I was set to go again this year with a Puerto Rican team. Probably, my personal opinion is that it's not going to happen. But I had other opportunities this year that they were gonna give me this desire to just keep doing it more. In the long run, you never know, right? I haven't really, talked about thought about my future. But why not, just manage a program, or work for a federation, college coaching. Even like one of my biggest dreams as a sailor was make it to the Olympics, right? I mean, I'd love to make it to the Olympics, even if it's as a coach, right? That would be my ultimate goal in sailing.
I think that's a good goal. Everybody's always in search of growth, and I think that there's always an avenue in sailing to find that. You just, have to, like you said, you have to go out and find your own path.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think we can all take solace in the fact that the water's still there. The sea is still calling, and there's still much sailing to be done. So maybe going a little bit more local for you. For you and your team. Without these regattas, without this calendar, what's going to be your focus for training for the next few months?
So right now, we were talking about it. Before the beginning of the interview. I think it's a time where we can use all these new tools and the social distancing. Pretty much every coach in the U.S. has been using the Zoom calls. And I'm pushing a lot the fitness part, where, try to offer them remote workouts, online training, and especially on mental training, tactics, bring, have a scheduled calls with experts on the field, right? Sports psychologists. Some really good sailor on keelboats that I can talk about, decisions on the first speed. I'm really pushing that right now, because that's the moment that this situation is giving me to further prepare those kids in aspects that maybe I wouldn't be focusing if right now situation was normal and we were working towards summer, St. Thomas, Europeans, Worlds, right? Unfortunately, this is not the goal anymore. And one of the aspects that matters the most for me is the fact that keeping them motivated. Without a regatta on the horizon right now, it is hard to go on the water and just work for nothing. So finding a way to keep them engaged and finding new goals locally and hopefully nationally, I think it's going to be very important to hold those kids, to keep those kids in the Opti class motivated, to keep working hard for the next season, hopefully.
Well, let's hope that the next season, comes about, smooth, and we transition into what are they saying, the new normal. We're not going to know the long-term effects on the Opti class and youth sailing for a while, I think. For Lakewood and in Texas, right, you guys were slated to be the host for team trials, and you some of your kids were heading off into these regattas, on the international calendar. What would you say to kids that maybe, are also wondering what's going to happen and want to know what they can expect coming into the summer?
Well, that's a tough question. Every I think every sailor who sails at a high level in Optis, or they want to do well, they know how to focus on the practices, right? And I think that they gotta treat those months like it's a long preseason, right? A preseason where when things go back to normal, we don't know when, we don't know how, but eventually it will go back to normal. We want to be ready when the first big event happens, because they're gonna be so eager to go to the start and perform or hike hard or whatever it is, right? That it's important to keep them engaged here. And you touch a good question, a good subject where right now with the travel restrictions and everything, local communities, yacht clubs like yours, mine, and others, those kids are all going to be here in the summer, right? I believe that the summer you gotta make it challenging but fun. You gotta find some ways to develop activities that bring team building, right? Whatever it is activity, I'm not going to talk about anything, but it's just create that sense of team that we're all together. We're going to get through this, and we're all working together and practicing hard. It's going to pay off in the long run.
That is a fantastic message, Bernat. I think that is the name of the game right now, and hopefully, programs, coaches, and families, buy into it, because I think that the Opti class can stand to gain a lot of new members and a lot of kids that can really discover the sport at this time.
Absolutely.
So, for anyone that's watching in, maybe that's what it's about.
Absolutely. I think sailing during the summer, it's considered, I believe, a low risk. We're not practicing the field. We're not 30 kids playing football, right?
It's the original social distancing sport, right?
Absolutely. I agree. I believe that we can actually develop a stronger community, get more sailors involved with the sport, because we're all going to be local, right? So that's the time that we have right now to work hard to get more sailors engaged and involved with the sport, and hopefully, grow the numbers in the U.S. That they're already pretty good. I think it's one of the largest in the world. But I believe, it's the great opportunity that we have right now, and that's probably the only focus that we can do. We can put right now. Just build your community.
Well said, my friend. I think our time is up, and I want to say thanks again for coming on and talking with me for a little while. Hopefully, this I think has changed, the Opti game, for the long run, but I think it's gonna be a positive change, over time.
For sure, the kids are smart. They'll adapt to this new situation, and then they're gonna come back stronger. And actually, as I said, that I appreciate having me here. Happy to help. Happy to talk about Optis and help you out with this great idea of putting Opti out everywhere.
Well, I appreciate that. Take care, and hopefully we'll see you sooner rather than later.
Yeah, hopefully, we're all looking forward to start traveling again.